And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Today we're taking a look at the big game Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia. Just a game in which you are trying to make your workers happy and without realizing what a terrible dump they're living in. Or just I'm sure there's some sort of satirical references in this game to the thing, but I went and looked at it as, okay, open it and wow, lots of cool pieces, dice, worker placement. It looks really cool. Let's take a look at it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here's the board of the game, and you can see there's a lot of different areas on the board, and it really can be overwhelming when you play it, but there's a couple areas that are very important. First, we'll take a look right here. You can see that there's two tracks on the board. One track here is your happiness, how happy your workers are, and the happier your workers are, the larger your hand size will be. As the game progresses, you will be grabbing artifact cards like a book and a baseball bat and a broken pair of glasses and a dilapidated old teddy bear and weird things like that. But you can only have as many of them in your hand as for example, you can only start with one card in your hand. The other track here is your knowledge track, and you actually want your workers to be as stupid as possible over the course of this game. Because, the smarter they get, they'll realize that you're not treating them as well as you should be. And so everyone will start here at 3. The game is going to revolve around these. These here are your workers. Each player is going to start with 2 of them, and the rest are in a pool, and you can get more workers as the game progresses. These workers are simply dice. They're cool-looking dice, but they're 6-sided dice. Now, the base, you're going to roll these to start the game, and so this is a worker of smartness 6, this is a worker of smartness 2. And this matters because as the game progresses, on your turn, you will either place a worker on the board, or you will pull all your workers off the board. Actually, you don't have to pull them off. You can pull off as many as you'd like off the board. You can only place one worker, but if both your workers, or once you have more than 2 workers, if they have the same number, you can place them all on the board at once on your turn. So having the same number is fine. Also, when you pull your workers off the board, you have to roll. You will take these numbers, 6 plus 4 plus 3 here is 13. Add your smartness to it, which, if you remember, starts at 3. And so I have 16. And if that total is 16 or higher, your smartest worker goes away. So you can have up to 4 workers, but every time you pull them off, you're going to have to roll, and there's a possibility that the smart one will leave you. There are several spaces to place workers on the board. I'm not going to go over every single one of them. I just want to get in to give you an overview. Here's many of these spots have dotted lines on them. That means when you're on that spot, when you place a worker there, somebody else can place a worker there and bump them back, and they come back to you, which is actually good because then you don't have to waste a turn pulling them off the board. This spot here is worker activation. You can use energy or water to get another worker. If you use energy, they get dumber. If you use water, they feel good and you get happier. And this also shows you when you pull your workers off the board, you can either lose 1 happiness to do that, or you can pay a food or bliss and gain 2 happiness by doing that. Now, if you'll notice, there's all sorts of resources all over the board. There's different mineral resources, there's energy, there's food, there's bliss. Down here at the bottom, there's water. And in many of these places, to get that resource, you will go to one of these spots. Now, this big box means as many people can be there as you want. So if I put a 3 here, I place a 3, look here, and 1 to 4 says I get 1 water. Hooray! And I also move the water. I'll each track 1, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Someone else can come in here because we can have as many as possible. Now it's a 7, so the second person will go here, where they get a water, and their intelligence goes down by 1. And then later on I can add a 5 here, it goes up to 12, which is in the last column, so I'll get 2 water, and my intelligence goes up by 1. So as dice are put in or out, whatever resources you get will change, and these are the same in all the resource spots on the board. At the beginning of the game, you'll get 4 recruit cards, and you'll choose 2 of them to keep. One of them you will place face down, and you can activate them during the course of the game. The other one will give you a special ability. So for example, this guy here, when you place a worker on the farm spot on the board, and you have the highest knowledge, or you're alone, you can either lose 1 intelligence or gain an extra food. Well, that's great. So these people, each of them is from one of the 4 factions. There's different factions. This guy is a Wastelander. And these 4 factions tie into the resource allegiance tracks. There are many things on the board that will cause these allegiance tracks to move. And as these allegiance tracks move, people who control a recruit of that type will get a bonus. And if in the first 3 spots, when you go to the spot that gives you the resource, you get an extra 1. Then over here, the tunnel spaces will work better for you. I'll talk about that in a second. When you get to the 8th space, if you have a recruit of that color face down, you can flip it up, giving you that action. And then if you get to the last space, everyone who has a recruit of that type can place a star on it. Stars are important. Each player is going to start with 10 of these stars, and as the game progresses, the whole goal of this game is to get rid of those stars. So one way is to put them on your recruits. There are also spots on the board where you'll be able to put stars. When big markets get built, you'll be able to put a star on those if you had something to do with that market. And there are many places to get rid of stars, and the whole goal of the game is the first person to get rid of 10 of them is the winner. Now, I mentioned this market. This is another place that people can go. There's different markets on the board, and each of them costs certain resources. This one costs 3 gold and 1 clay. And so players are going to have to slowly spend time working together, and once they've paid the resources and put their workers there, they are removed. The market comes out. The market slides over. Everybody who helped in that marker, who put at least 1 worker there, gets a star. There's a disadvantage at the bottom for everybody who did not help. For example, this says if you don't have a star here, you can't add workers when you have 2 or 3 workers. Well, that could be a negative thing. Also, it opens up another market that you can go to. I can go here, I can pay 1 of these artifact cards and 1 resource of any type, and I can move the allegiance of one of the factions, and I can place a star in this section here, which can be, as a way to get rid of a star. And really, at this point in time, there's so much going on here. I'm not going to explain every space or every market, but going into different markets will get you cards. We'll let you put stars out. We'll get you different resources. There's also down here, you can go to these are tunnels, and you can slowly move this worker along the tunnel, and if he gets down to the bottom, you'll flip all the cards of that type, and you'll open up a new spot where you can get a lot of resources. And once the tunnel once the tunnel's finished and at allegiance, when you go to the tunnel, you usually go there to get, for example here, a clay or an artifact card. This will change to an and you'll get a clay and an artifact card. So there's really a lot going on, and it's going to take people a while to figure out where all their resources are going to. You have a little thing here that keeps track of your resources because there's not enough resources, especially if you play with a lot of players. So I can say I have 3 energy rather than having 3 of them. This is a great idea, and I liked it. I just wish they had made it go to 5 at least, because you often will have 5 of a resource, and so then you have to say, okay, I got 3 and 2. I don't know, I just thought that would have been a better idea. Other than that, you can see everything looks really cool, and gameplay is just going to take place until one person gets out their 10 stars. So on your turn, you're placing 1 worker, maybe more if you have the same number, or you're pulling workers. You have another action. Each person has a card here that shows what all the commodities and all the symbols mean. But you also have an ethical dilemma. Like, would you rather publish an expose or publish propaganda? You can do this once per game. You need to get rid of 2 artifact cards or get rid of a glasses card. Or maybe this person here, help a friend escape or turn in a friend. You have to get rid of balloons or 2 artifact cards. If you do the 1/2, you get to draw 2 more recruits and keep 1. If you do the other one, you just get to put a star on the card. So it's a very interesting aspect to the game. And again, this is just a brief overview. There's all sorts of things that I didn't mention, like, for example, when there's fewer players, some of these spots on these stars can't have people put on them. And there's a little bit more to the game, but it's all about figuring out how to get your stars on the board. There are many games when you play them, you say, oh, this is what I should do, and then I should do this. And there might be divergent paths. Euphoria is very open-ended. You're trying to get rid of stars. I mean, that's your whole goal. But you could get misplaced in that goal because when you first play, and I'll tell you, the first game that you are in of Euphoria, you will sit there for a long time. It wasn't until I was, a good 60% done with the game, and all of a sudden a light went on and I said, oh, I need to do this to get this, to do this, to move over here. Now, this isn't normally my style, but I kind of was intrigued by this for a couple reasons. One, I like placing dice. I think the dice aspect's cool. I think rolling and having an intelligent person run is a good thing, with the exception of it's possible that you could roll double sixes when you have two people and have a fairly low intelligence, or even, if your intelligence goes up by 1 at the beginning of the game and it's 4, and then you roll a 12s, you lose one of your workers, and it will take you a while to get that worker back. This has happened to me, and I don't know, I would just say that I don't know if there's a way around that. I almost want to say that the number should be 17, or that if you roll, if you have 2 dice, you're immune to losing one. I'm not sure how to fix that, because I think there should be that threat over your heads, but that can really mess someone up. I would actually give that person a mulligan if that happened at the beginning of a game. But other than that, it's neat, because you can do pretty well with 2, but you can do better with 3. But if you use 3 workers, but maybe you can just leave 1 worker on the board doing something, not pull him off, pull off the other 2, and pull off that 3rd one when he's done help building that place. I do think there are optional rules in the game for drafting the people that you have at the beginning, and also to draft, there's many different buildings in the middle. And I think that there's a rule in the game where you can draft those at the beginning of the game and pick some of the ones that go in the middle. Everyone picks some and they get mixed up and put in random places. I will always play with that rule. I will always play with drafting the people rule, because it's good to have the people. I like that. You can keep people of the same type, which will give you less bonuses as the game progresses, but if that type gets their influence up high enough, that's a bunch of points you're getting rid of. Or you can get people of different types, which will give you more bonuses as the game progresses. It's very interesting, and what's really cool is how the board is really interconnected. This is a heavy Euro, I think. There's a lot going on, and for a lot of people who just want to come into a game and see how it works right out, that's not how this one's going to be. You're going to have to play this game once just to kind of get a grasp on it, and then after that you're going to see, wow, there's a lot of neat strategy. I'm not convinced that all the helpers' powers are balanced. Maybe they are. But I do think that each time I play the game, I can try something completely different, and I have, and I think that's a neat aspect to it. So I think this is solid. Now, the board says 60 minutes, and you'll get there when everyone knows what they're doing, but figure it's a 2-hour game. The components are amazing. The artwork is great. This is a production that when I got it, I said, this is a Kickstarter? This is much better than the normal production of a Kickstarter, and that's great. So I am recommending this game for a very specific group of people, those who like worker placement games, but that give you kind of freedom and don't give you boundaries of what to do. So you kind of like, at first you might not know what you're doing, but as the game goes by, it's a pretty cool game. Euphoria.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.